Welcome to Season 3 of the History Quill podcast. This season is quite different from our first two seasons. We're talking to historical fiction writers who are in the trenches just like you. Some are just at the beginning of their journeys, others are a bit further along, but they're all learning what it means to be a historical fiction writer. In each of the 4 episodes this season, we'll learn about a major challenge each guest has encountered and overcome in their writing journey, giving you important lessons to take away for your own writing. The other change is me. I'm Andrew Noakes, founder of the History Quill, and I will be hosting this season. Our first 2 seasons were hosted by the wonderful Julia Kelly and Theodore Bryn. I have big shoes to fill, and I'm very excited to get started. Our guest for this episode is Emma Strangwayes-Booth, who is writing a historical mystery set in France in 1750, but it's a historical mystery with a twist, which we'll get to. Emma's main challenge has been finding the time to write, which we've all experienced. But what's most interesting is how this connects to another issue writers struggle with. 2 things changed the picture for Emma, and we'll find out what those were. Now, before we dive in, all of our guests this season are members of the History Quill. If you want to learn more about our membership, follow the link in the description of this episode. Emma, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the History Quill podcast. So your challenge has been finding the time to write. Tell us how that showed up in your writing and the impact it had.
Well, the challenges I have always been that I have this very busy life with my family, and so it's struggling to fit that in, really. So with my teenage children and their schedules and school holidays, and then my job, which is as a freelance tour guide, so it can happen any time. I can get called the day before, the night before to do a tour. And so it's like sort of fitting it into that, really, which is difficult and a challenge.
I think everyone can relate to trying to fit writing into their lives like that. I definitely remember trying to write in the early morning, in the evening, late evening. Once, actually, a bit of a guilty secret. Once, when I had a day job, this was many years ago. Mm-hmm. I used to kind of write at work sometimes, just secretly, kind of pretending to do my work, maybe on lunch breaks, also maybe sometimes not on lunch breaks. So
yeah,
I think
yes, I've done that.
I think everyone who has the passion for this knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's not so bad sometimes. I mean, you're writing, right?
Yeah. So when you were really in the thick of this challenge, what did a typical writing week look like for you? Was it at all predictable, or did you have to just fit it in wherever you could?
It wasn't consistent at all, and I was just fitting it in whenever I could, and it was working up to a point because it's something I'm used to as a visual artist, just fitting in painting or drawing into my day, basically. But yes, it became unsustainable, I would say.
When you were in that mindset of this is unsustainable, this isn't working, I can't find the time, what story were you telling yourself about why you couldn't find the time?
Well, I was making up a lot of stories, I feel. I was saying things like, oh, I have to be here to pick up this at the pharmacy, and then there was the whole thing with the, where I was writing, which, having this writer's room, this idea that we have to have a special place to write. And I was using that a little bit as an excuse until I realized what I was doing, actually. So, I was just building up excuses not to write because it was basically it's lack of self-belief and ultimately which is to do with fear of failure.
So I often think about this. I think like all great lies, it has a whiff of truth about it, doesn't
yes.
it? Because you tell yourself that you have to write in a certain way, in a certain place, a certain frame of mind, and all that.
Yeah.
And that is true. I mean, there is a certain truth to it.
Yes.
But eventually, those kind of excuses build up, and you're left with a situation in which you're just not writing. And I think in the end, that's why some people end up not completing their novels, because the excuses just build up.
Yes, exactly. And a negative voice is like a bully. It's like anxiety. So you have to put that bully in its place.
Exactly. So before we we dive into kind of what changed for you, I'd love to know a little bit more about your story. I briefly explained it to our listeners in the introduction, but please do tell us more.
Well, my book is set in 1750 in Burgundy, in France, in a town called Solieu, which is a small town, now famous for its Michelin-starred restaurant, but in 1750, not so much. And it opens with our protagonist, who's called a criminal lieutenant, which is like I suppose like an how to say, detective, but they didn't really have detectives then. And he's an Enlightenment lawyer, and he's feeling very stuck because he's trying to find out who's flooding the town with counterfeit coin, and he's a bit bored. He doesn't want to be in this small town. But then news arrives that this detested Baron Béziers has been found dead under suspicious circumstances in his chateau nearby, in a place called Passy-le-Bois.
Oh, goodness.
And so Gaspard, with his faithful clerk, Jean-Luc, decides this is quite good. It's going to, change of scene and everything. So off they go, and they discover the Baron really, pretty dead. His eyes have been burnt out, and he's surrounded by evidence of a black mass. And it seems that a sinister criminal gang has been operating out of the chateau, and so it looks like they're behind the Baron's demise. But helping him, we have Sarah Mendoza. She is a descendant of an ancient family of Near Eastern exorcists called Aspinus, and they team up, and they're soon on the gang's trail, because what has happened is that the gang, this criminal gang, have they thought they would pretend to summon up a treasure-finding demon as a ruse, but they end up doing it too well, and they end up summoning up a real demon. And
Brilliant.
And yes, so that's really what it's about. So a power-hungry demon.
I love it. I love the supernatural twist. Just briefly, what was it like writing a story that basically is in two different genres, and actually three genres: mystery, historical, and fantasy?
I suppose I've blended the three genres I love, but not so hard actually. I didn't find it difficult at all. I suppose I do read a lot of fantasy, and I do read a lot of historical fiction, and I love historical thrillers as well. And there's always a sort of a darkness, like with Shard Lake or something. There's always sort of something a bit dark or demonic, but usually it's a bit, it's not real. But there's always a feeling there that it could be. So I think, I didn't find it difficult.
So you say it's easy, as I and every other writer curses under our breath.
I think you just have a really, really vivid imagination. So like, welcome to my brain. But yeah.
And you've told me before that you really believe in this story. Where does that belief come from, and how does that help?
That is, I would just say, in any kind of art form, you have to believe in it. You have to believe in it like 110%, because if you don't believe in it, it's no one else is really. I'm enjoying writing it. I'm not every day. There are moments when it's, a tough day, or, things aren't working with the scene. But today it's really come together. Certain scenes really come together, and it just gives me this sort of feeling of joy, and pleasure, because I feel very close to my characters as well. So they're sort of like my family now, which makes me sound slightly insane. I love them all, even the really, really nasty ones,
Sometimes you love those the most.
So, yeah, I kind of do.
Now, going back to the interaction between the lack of self-belief and the scheduling, this is something that I've thought about quite a bit. And you see, I think the two reinforce each other in a really difficult way.
Yeah.
Because the lack of time for writing reinforces the lack of self-belief, in the sense that if you're not writing, then you're not having those moments that you just talked about. you're not having those moments of revelation and pleasure and joy from the experience of a scene coming together in just the right way, and you're not building your confidence through experience. And the more you get into that situation where you don't have that confidence, well, the more you make the excuses, right? That you can't schedule the writing, and you can't, write in the wrong place and so on. So I think it's really difficult. And as I was saying before, I think it's a major reason why people just kind of slowly, their commitment to the writing just slowly dwindles, and they end up not completing that novel, which is such a shame because there's so many great novels out there that haven't been written. But I would love to know what was different for you. What changed?
Well, there were two things that changed. One was the pitch party that the History Quill organised, which I submitted my pitch to. And the second was being offered a place to go and write by my friend in Brittany, by the sea. And it was quite funny because they offered it, and I was like, oh, I can't possibly take any time. The family. And in the end, my friend just said, no excuses, like that, And I'm very, very lucky. I've got the most wonderful, supportive husband, and children and friends, and and I was, are you sure I can say, are you sure we're going to be okay? It's 9 days. My husband was like, yeah, I think I can cope. They are 16 and 12 or whatever they were. It's not like they were tiny. Even when they were tiny, he could still coach, But yes, it was those two events.
We'll definitely get onto the pitch party in a bit because we've already spoken about that a little bit. And I think that's a really important experience to share with people. But I'd love to talk about the retreat first. What I've never been on a writing retreat, but I know some of our members have, some haven't. So kind of put us in your shoes. What was the first day like?
Terrifying. I've got to be honest with you. Let's talk about the first night because Alfreston, who owns the house, and his wife, he dropped me off, and he took me to the supermarket. So I bought some supplies. I think I bought a very small steak and some couple bottles of beer. And I said, oh, Attal, do you want to stay for a beer? And he said, no, Emma, you must write. And he left. And I was like, oh. And then it was very, very cold. So the heating had been put on, but it was sort of a chug, chug, chug. And it's a very, very old house. It's a former bakery. I went into this one room. It had horrible yellow wallpaper. And I sort of thought, well, I'll go to bed. And I sort of buried myself under the covers and then just spent the whole night going, what was that noise? What was that noise? That was terrifying. And then the dawn rose and then I just sort of laid everything. I had this huge long table in the main room, and I just laid all my research, and I bought everything in a huge suitcase, very heavy, all my books and my research and everything, and I laid everything out. I set up the Wi-Fi. I went for a walk. And I just got down to it, really. That was the first day.
Did you, I'm curious about that moment when you laid everything out, because you had, up to that point, you had been making some excuses to yourself about not being able to write in the right place and the right time. And then suddenly you're confronted with the reality that now you've got no excuse. What was that like?
Oh, it was it was wonderful. I still don't have anywhere to lay anything out. Well, I do, but then somebody wants, to make a sandwich, and I have to move everything to one side. So, it was really, really nice to see everything out like that. My piles of books, it was great. It was a wonderful feeling, actually.
So it wasn't daunting. It wasn't like, oh, now I've got no excuse. I have to do this. There wasn't a moment. There wasn't a part of you that said, oh, maybe I'll just go and do this instead.
No, not at all, because I also knew I only had 9 days. And I was like, this is a gift, And then I realized that in 16 years, I hadn't been by myself. That was quite a shock, actually. I was like, wow. I hadn't actually been by myself for such a long time. I may have the odd night or something, but not 9 days solidly. So yeah, no, I saw it as a gift that I had to embrace.
Right. And take us through how the retreat kind of developed for you. Was there a moment when something clicked?
I would say it was interesting actually because I had all this wonderful support from all my writing friends, or just my friends in general, but a lot of writers. And I I've telephoned my friend Jennifer Huckster, who has a fantastic blog on Substack, and she said to me, she texted me and she said, "Have you fallen into the void yet?" So I was like, "Oh, you should come." Desperate, a little bit, so I thought, oh, maybe I have a writing buddy or something, which I think was a bit, maybe try not to write for a second, because it was so beautiful where I was. And I was like, the void. And it's about this moment where it's like the blank page, the blank screen. It's this moment where you just have to just fall in, all in, without, just don't think about anything else, just fall into that void. And then I think that was the moment that it clicked for me, yes. And when she said that, I said, okay, I've got to do this. And it's just like, closing your eyes and jumping, trusting yourself.
I love that metaphor. What was it? How productive were you once you were in the void?
Gosh, so productive, Andrew. It was wonderful. I would wake up because I was too. When you put the shutters down in the house, everything went black. I mean, you'd wake up in the night, you couldn't see a thing, and it was terrifying for me because I'm not very good in the dark.
Not ideal with the subject matter of your book.
No, exactly. I was just like, I don't want to conjure anything up. So, it was quite scary. And so I kept the shutters a little bit high. I moved to another bedroom as well, so that I had the morning light come in. And I kept the shutters up, so the morning light would wake me. And then I'd get done, I'd have a cup of tea, and I'd have a little bit of breakfast. I'm not a big breakfast eater. And then I'd go for a walk. And each walk would be different. And on the walk, I would try and find something. And then I laid it out behind me on this little sideboard behind me. So after 9 days, I had 9 objects, which I took photos of, which I can send you if you want. And yeah, so, I sort of just had this walk, and I would say it would take about half an hour, 40 minutes, no longer. I was quite strict. Then I'd come back, cup of coffee, work. And then I'd have this wonderful, blissful thing where I just work. I'd have lunch when I wanted, which I hadn't done for years because I've been cooking lunch for, planning dinner. It was such a luxury. So having lunch at 3. Yes. So, but I would stop for lunch, and then I would stop. I'd stop when I sort of felt tired at about 7 or 8, 7 o'clock, and I'd have some supper, because then, of course, it was getting spookily dark again.
Yeah.
The house sort of started going into shadow because it was a big house. I was all by myself, so I sort of would make my little dinner in the kitchen, and had no curtains or anything, and so I felt very exposed. And then I'd retire up to my bedroom, and I'd watch really, really bad Netflix. And then I'd go to sleep, or I'd read a book that I was researching. It was part of my research.
And by the time you got to the end of the retreat,
Mm-hmm.
What kind of shape was your novel in? I assume it wasn't finished, but had you made good progress?
It wasn't quite finished, but it was nearly finished.
Really?
And that was so exciting. Yeah, and I could see how it was going to end. And that was just, that was amazing. That was an amazing feeling. And that's where it was, really. And I think I finished it about 2 months later. And then I cried.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That retreat had a massive impact on your writing. It really changed the picture completely. What did you realize about yourself during the retreat?
I realized that I like my own company, but I do like the company of other people. So I I think I've always liked my own company. I mean, since I was a child, I've always been quite a loner. But I realized that is very confronting to be by yourself all the time. Um, I Yeah, so I think I realized that, and then I realized that it was good for my self confidence because it made me realize that if I do put my mind to something, I can do it. And I do struggle with my self confidence. So it was nice to feel that about myself, proud of myself a little.
And did that spur you on afterwards as well? Were you able to then make more progress once you'd finished the retreat than you had been doing before?
Yes, yes. And since then, I have to say, although, it's not been, again, it's had its moments, I would say that getting up and going for a walk and then writing, I've really tried to stick to. And just because I remember there was one day on the retreat where I really had a block, and I I have a wonderful group called Creative Dreaming Group, and they said, paint a picture, Emma. And I brought my little watercolors with me, and I just painted one of the things I'd found on the beach that day. And I also had a guitar, and I played guitar. And so it also taught me that to do something else. That it wasn't, I don't know. It's as if don't put too much pressure on myself. Basically, that's what it taught me.
So I know there was another moment that we've already spoken about very briefly that changed things for you, and this relates to the pitch parties that the History Quill offers through our membership. We offer these pitch parties every quarter, and we invite a literary agent on to our community, our online community, and every single member gets the opportunity to do a short pitch for their novel. And every person who pitches will get a response from the agent on the community, but we don't ever say like there's a guarantee that the agent will ask to see more of your book or whatever. But in your case, that's exactly what happened. So talk us through that.
Well, I just suddenly thought I'm going to do this pitch party. It came up on the newsletter, and I thought I'll do it. And I just wrote the pitch. I got it checked by a friend of mine, and they were like, "Sounds great," and I was like, "Yay!" So that was good. And then I thought, which is what I feel about everything now, which is if I didn't get anything, it would be fine. But if something did happen, it would be an acknowledgement that I was on the right track, basically. And I needed to see that. I needed to hear that, I think. And then I was just really lucky because I got an email from an agent afterwards.
I think it can be really difficult for writers to put themselves out there, even when they're in a writing membership. It can be quite challenging to put your work out there in such a way because everyone else in the membership is kind of reading it, the agent's reading it. It makes it all suddenly feel very real. So what was going through your mind as you decided to put yourself forward in that way?
Well, that I had to get it. I have to get this out there. I can't just sit on it. Doing nothing. It's important that it goes out there, and all feedback is good feedback.
But I think it's okay to be a little bit scared of criticism. I think what's most important is not letting that stop you from taking the risk.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing. That's what it is. It's and also knowing that everybody's got a different opinion. So I'm about to send the first few chapters to a friend of mine. I suppose like a beta reader. And somebody she's been reading my short stories for years. So I am fully prepared for her to come back and say, "Oh, this is not working," or it's funny here, and I want her to do that. I want to hear that because how on earth am I going to move forward if I can't, hear those sort of points of view?
And when you get that feedback, how did that then change your mindset?
Well, it made me feel that I was on the right track, and it made me think, okay, you know what, this is actually a good story. It's not just in my own head, I think, like, it's not just my husband being really nice to me when I'm going, what do you think about this? And he goes, yeah, that sounds great. No, I think, I felt that it was, that it validated what I was doing, which is a rare thing, really. Um, I haven't had a lot of massive success. I send a lot of short stories out into the ether, you know. Um, I've done a lot of bids for art funding, not got it. It's really hard. Sometimes it's like being punched and you just have to sort of get up again.
And then the moment comes when actually you get that feedback and it feels worth it.
Well, one hopes. I mean, let's hope let's hope she follows up with it. I mean, I have to I have to be prepared for that too. But I won't obviously just rely everything on to this one agent. I will send it to other people too. So
exactly. And even if for some reason that doesn't work out, which can happen, you now know that an agent was interested enough to give you that confidence to pitch it elsewhere.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And the pitch party, those are community experiences. So everyone is pitching the same agent. You get to see other people's pitches, which can be really interesting. You get to see the feedback that they get. And was that important? Was that helpful to you?
It's really, really helpful. First of all, you see the myriad ideas that people have in historical fiction. So you're like, Romans? What? Some civil war, or, and you're sort of, it's really exciting. And yeah, so it's always helpful. I think, we can't live in a vacuum. And I mean, that's another thing I should have said really earlier, which is in joining the History Quill, that for me was putting myself out there, because I've never done anything like this before, where I'm actually kind of actively a member of something like this. And so, yeah, it was, I think that was step one in this journey, really. So thank you. Thanks,
Oh, my pleasure. I'm honestly, I'm so glad that we could be part of it.
Totally, because I was actually sort of saying to myself, you can do this. I was taking myself seriously, and then I was finding this great community of other people who love historical fiction. You're not alone. It's important to feel like that, I think, because it's a lonely life, right?
So important. It's so important. It takes, I mean, writing takes a long time, and often you're around folks who, as much as you say they love you and they want to, be supportive, they don't necessarily get it in the same way that another historical fiction writer would get it. What I'd love to know as we start to wrap up, I'd love to know, what does your writing schedule look like now?
Well, I mean, I had a difficult January. I have to be honest with you. January was hard. My cat got sick and then died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so it took a lot. Yeah, it's very hard. And so it took a lot away. I sort of was a bit, I had no schedule. And then I sort of pulled myself together. And now I wake up early. I do wake up at between 6 and 7, I would say. And then I ease myself gently into the day with a cup of tea. And I go for a walk. I'm very lucky. I live by beautiful woods called the Bois-sur-Seine. And I walk and I just think. I meditate every morning as well. And I do various forms of meditation. I do nervous system meditation. I do mindfulness, affirmations. Sometimes I do journaling, which is really helpful and sort of gets you out of your head a bit. And it's writing. And then I sort of sit down in front of my second draft and go, okay, here we go. But on Friday, I painted on Friday. I didn't write, I painted.
So the walking is interesting, because you mentioned that's something you did every day while you were on the retreat. So is that kind of a routine that you established then and you've actually stuck with?
Yes, absolutely. And I remember I used to produce audio guides in the UK, and we did Darwin's house. And Darwin would take a walk every day he had this thing called the walk, I think, it's like an avenue of trees. And he would just go and walk every day, and then he'd come back and write. And I think that always stuck in my mind. That and collecting a lot of worms, putting them on a piano and getting his wife to play the piano to check the worms' reactions.
Well, I think for our listeners, we will recommend the first, maybe not the second aspect of that.
But yeah. So.
Walks good, worms not necessarily required. But bringing it back to our listeners, if someone out there listening to this is feeling stuck in that time scarcity spiral, what would you say to them?
I'd say don't listen to your negative. Well, tell your negative voice firstly to be quiet, and then change of scene. Like, so for instance, time scarcity, if it's to do with I don't have a place to write, I sometimes go and write in a cafe. I put my noise cancelling headphones on and I go and write in a cafe. And if I'm only writing 15 minutes, that's fine. Like, it's the pressure. Don't put so much pressure on yourself, 10 minutes. Oh, wow, you wrote 10 minutes. That's something, But if you don't do a day, then just do something else. For instance, I love research. So I would go to the library or I would go to a museum. Just try and break it up, so it gets you more excited again. When you go to, I'm about to go and see an exhibition of 18th century clothes that they're doing at the Galleria. And I'm very excited about it because it's going to make me think about fabric and, whether or not I'll write about it or not, I don't know, but it will get me excited for some of the dresses that my villainess is going to wear. It's like that. So yeah, just do something else. Paint a picture.
I love that because sometimes people say to me, oh, I didn't make any progress on my novel today or this week. I was stuck researching. And I said to them, well, I think, but you did.
Yes, you did. Research
you did make progress.
Oh, it's so important.
Research is really important. And not, as you said, not just for learning the key facts, but giving yourself a sense of the place and inspiring yourself.
Totally. I'm reading this incredibly boring book called France and the Enlightenment. I was at a bit of a mental block, so I lay down on the sofa. I had some sticky things, and I just sort of, God, it was dull, but it was, like, oh, that's what happened, or just read a historical novel of a favorite author. I think the key is just to not put too much pressure on yourself. And also write the book. The person you've got to write it for is yourself. That's and then everything comes after. But no, I'm not focusing on publishing houses, or I'm not doing that yet. Sometimes I have a little thing, but ultimately I just have to write the book for me.
I'm definitely going to have to re-listen to this episode constantly because there's so many gems of wisdom here that I need to apply to my own projects, actually.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say that when I started writing this book, my mother was still alive, and my mother was a writer, and she never finished her historical novel, which was set in South Africa, and it was wonderful. I read it, and it was partly because in the last few years it was difficult for her to write, but she would often make a lot of excuses. They sounded like excuses, but it was tough for her. And I learned a big lesson, but she was very much an inspiration for me. So yeah, just gotta, finish it. Not it doesn't matter where you write.
Emma, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's just a reminder to us all that we need to do the things we care about while we can.
Yes, because you only have today,
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really wish you luck with finishing the novel, with talking to that agent, and just moving everything forward. Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a real pleasure to talk about it, and it makes it even more real. So thank you very much.